I'd say that's absolutely absurd because we are running on a historic record of accomplish everything from 15 million new jobs created under this administration, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, the work that the president has done to lower costs for Americans, capping the cost of insulin at $35, making the single largest investment to combat climate change in our nation's history, the first bipartisan gun safety legislation in a generation. The list goes on and on and on of the historic record of accomplishment and the vision for the future. The fact remains that the looming threat of MAGA extremism has only grown stronger since January 6th. And so, yeah, we're going to campaign on the president's record, on his vision, and we're going to run against the extremism embodied by Donald Trump as he sits in that building or anywhere else across the country.
Michael, do you really believe that an undecided voter in Michigan or Wisconsin is paying attention to this trial and this verdict?
Well, they're certainly going to pay attention to the stakes of this election as we continue to communicate it day in and day out. That's what we're doing here today. That's what we're going to do every single day through the debate in Atlanta. That's what we'll do ahead of the debate in September 10th. And that's what we'll do from now until Election Day, making sure that voters in states across the country understand the clear choice that they have between a fighter in Joe Biden, who wakes up every single day fighting for them, for their families and their communities, and Donald Trump, who's fighting for himself, whether he's here in New York, down in Mar-a-Lago, on Truth Social. When he does venture out onto the campaign stump, he's fighting for one person, that's Donald Trump. So we're going to make sure that the American people understand that choice.
We expect President Biden at some point to address the trial.
Organized by the Biden campaign. I just want to know why you decided to do this conference here outside the courtroom. Why are you having a political conference outside of a criminal trial of the president?
Again, you all are already here. It's easy to talk about the choice in this election when the entire news media is camped out here day in and day out. So we're talking about the choice that voters are going to have in this election and the threat embodied by the man who is in that building right now. But it is a threat no matter where he is, a threat to our fundamental freedoms, a threat to our democracy, a threat to our very way of life. And so this campaign is going to communicate that here in New York. We're going to communicate across all the battleground states day in and day out until voters are able to cast their ballots.
Would you consider Trump a threat to all these wars Biden has gotten us into?
Any media questions?
Is this a weaponization of the Justice Department, sir?
Any media questions?
You want to answer the real questions, only the fake news?
Down here the rest of the week.
Stay tuned.
Is there a defense that the president could mount for those voters, especially progressive young voters, given what's going on in Gaza? He set a red line for Rafah. Israelis went in and had another massacre.
Yeah, I'd say one thing. I'd say that the president and this campaign are making clear that the president approaches complex conflicts like this not as a politician, but as the commander-in-chief, making sure that his North Star is American security, global security, making sure that, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, but that we are not that any civilian casualty is one too many. He's been very clear about that, and he makes decisions like this with national security in mind. I do think that stands in stark contrast of the person who sits in that building, who makes every single decision based upon what's in the best interest of one individual, and that's himself. And so we're going to communicate that choice day in and day out until the election. We're also going to communicate the entirety of what voters are going to be taking to the ballot box. You mentioned young voters, making sure that they understand that, again, they have a president who's been fighting to address the existential threat that is climate change, making the single largest investment in climate change in our nation's history, making sure that they understand that they have a president, Joe Biden, who's been fighting relentlessly to make sure that we can live in communities free from gun violence, passing the first bipartisan gun safety legislation in a generation. We're going to make sure that they bring all of this information to the ballot box and they understand the clear choice between Joe Biden, who thinks about them, their safety, their interests, day in and day out, versus Donald Trump, who's thinking about himself no matter what the issue is. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Mr. Tadira, can you come to the microphone and speak instead, please?